Nights in the EA have a sound, a ventilator's sigh, a monitor's metronome, the low electric hum that makes you forget what real silence feels like. At 3:07 a.m., that symphony cracked split by a sound I hadn't heard in years. A pager. Not the hospital's new handhelds with touchscreens and chimes. A blunt, brick-shaped Motorola that belonged to a past we'd supposedly outgrown. My past. I was dictating notes in the empty residence room when it came a high, needling trill that bypassed reason and went straight for bone memory. I froze, pen midair. The sound wasn't in the hallway. It was closer, inside the locker at my back. I stared at the metal door like it could bite. No one used pagers anymore, least of all me. I'd tossed mine into that locker the day administration switched to secure messaging 2 winters ago, during flu surge. I hadn't touched it since. Another trill. Short, then long, then short again. My fingers didn't feel like they belonged to me when I spun the combo and tugged the door open. On the top shelf, under a dead stethoscope and a spare pair of scrubs, lay the old pager. The display, supposed to be black and lifeless, glowed a sickly green. Characters scrolled across the window in a blocky font that hadn't aged well. CB17B, sub-level cold room. Morgue. The code nested under my skin before my mind caught up. CB, containment breach. A protocol retired after the freezer failure, the year Dr. Liza Chon died. I hadn't seen CB on a live system since we buried her. A cold draft crept through the room, tugging at my sleeves. I clicked the pager off. It beeped again, louder. The display flashed. 3 men. I stepped into the corridor. The hospital felt different at that hour longer somehow. The white glare of the lights stretching ahead like a highway in fog. My shoes made small, apologetic sounds on the linoleum as I took the service elevator down. Each floor we passed let out a bored electronic ding, as if unimpressed by the urgency chewing through me. Sub-level smelled like old water and antiseptic. The morgue sat at the end of a narrow hall, behind a gray door marked authorized only. A red keycard light blinked its steady, indifferent pulse. Beyond the door, faint but unmistakable, came another sound. A second pager beeping out of sync with mine, a distant echo in steel and frost. I swiped my badge. The light stayed red. I tried again. Red. My pager vibrated in my palm. Lock override denied. Then, use key 7. Key 7 doesn't exist anymore. We phased out physical keys with the last renovation. Still, muscle memory sent my hand to the ring clipped at my belt, some part of me expecting a tarnished brass tooth that could open anything. Empty? Only plastic. Security? I said into the wall intercom. Static hissed back, then a voice I half recognized, tinny with distance. "Doctor, you're late." I swallowed. "Who is this?" Silence. Then the far-off pager answered foreign. 3 quick beeps. A pause. 3 more. The pattern stirred something old. The way Dr. Chun used to page when a freezer alarm misfired and she didn't want to wake the whole floor. 3-3, her private shorthand for come alone. I put my ear to the seam of the door. Cold bled through the metal, burning my skin. On the other side, I heard it faintly a breath. Slow, deliberate, like someone standing inches from the threshold, matching my lungs for fun. "Hello," I said before I knew I would. Between my ribs, my heart switched to the pager's tempo. The red light above the reader flickered, hiccuped, and went dark. The lock thunked once, heavy, like a hand setting down a full glass. The handle twitched under its own weight, a whisper of movement toward open. I didn't turn it. The morgue is never for the living at this hour. No patients belong there. No pages should call you to it, not with a dead code, not with a dead doctor's rhythm. Behind the door, the second pager stopped. Mine did too. In the absolute silence that followed, another sound pushed through the scene, something slow, dragging across tile, metal against metal, drawing nearer. When the handle moved again, it wasn't the door pulling outward. It was a hand, testing from the other side. I should have run. Every instinct screamed for it. But medicine has a way of teaching you to freeze, to study what doesn't make sense before acting. My eyes locked on the handle as it twitched again once, then twice, like a patient's pulse trying to return. The morgue door had no window, only a seam of shadow at the floor, where the light from my side spilled inward. And yet, I swear, I saw fingers slip into that shadow gray, impossibly thin, curling under the door, as though bone and flesh could flatten themselves into paper. They flexed once, like they were learning the motion. I staggered back, pager clutched to my chest. It was dark now, lifeless, but I felt it vibrating, steady, as though it shared a pulse with whatever waited behind the door. The dragging sound stopped. Silence pressed in. I backed away slowly, step by step, until the service elevator loomed behind me. I fumbled for the button, my thumbs slick with sweat. Nothing happened. The light above the call button stayed dead. That's when I heard it again, the beeping. Not from my pager. From deeper inside the morgue. A shrill, insistent code pounding in the rhythm of my heart. I swallowed hard. "This isn't real," I whispered. "You're overtired, hallucinating." But then, through the intercom panel on the wall, a voice hissed through the static. Familiar. Broken. 3 minutes late, again. I froze. The words throbbed with accusation. They weren't wrong. The night Dr. Chun died, I had been late. Her pager had gone off, her code alerting containment failure in the cold room, and I had told myself she could handle it until I finished suturing another patient. By the time I reached her, the lock had sealed, and she never came back out. My breath came shallow. "Who is this?" I asked the intercom, though I knew the answer before the words left me. "Come inside," the voice rasped. "It's your turn." The lock on the morgue door clicked. The handle lowered with a deliberate slowness, the seam widening into darkness. Air colder than ice exhaled through the opening, brushing my skin like wet hands. I should have run. Instead, I found myself leaning forward, staring into the yawning dark, my pager vibrating harder against my ribs. And from inside, a shadow moved, dragging something heavy across the tile. Metal against metal. A sound I recognized too well. A body drawer sliding open. The sound of the drawer sliding open clawed at something buried in me, a memory half rotted by time. I had stood in that morgue years ago, when the freezer alarms failed, when frost melted into water that pooled under the stainless steel tables. Dr. Chun had been down there alone. The code CB17B was the drawer where the leak had started. Now it was opening again. The morgue door was ajar by inches, just enough for a seam of cold blackness to bleed out into the corridor. My pager buzzed once, hard, like a jolt against bone. I lifted it, and words scrolled across the dead screen. 17B, occupied. My chest tightened. Occupied meant a body, but there hadn't been any transfers tonight. No deaths logged. The dragging sound stopped. Silence spilled through the crack in the door. Then came the breathing. Low, heavy, the sound of lungs straining after too much silence. Each inhale scraped, wet and broken. Each exhale rattled like loose glass. The morgue wasn't empty. Someone or something was inside. "Dr. Chun?" I whispered before I could stop myself. No answer. Only the hiss of the ventilation system and the faint drip of condensation hitting tile. I backed away, my shoes squeaking against the linoleum, but the pager pulsed again. This time, a single line glared at me. "Enter." I shook my head. No, not again. The corridor behind me stretched too long, like the hospital itself had grown. The elevator still sat dead, its call light blank. I was cornered. The morgue door was the only thing alive in the hall, its handle twitching like a patient's hand, testing for grip. I told myself I'd just look, just prove it was nothing, a trick of exhaustion. Then I could walk away. I pressed my palm to the door and pushed. It groaned open, a breath of air colder than winter swallowing me whole. My vision fogged. Inside, the morgue lay in its usual order rows of steel drawers, fluorescent lights buzzing weakly, frost clinging to the corners. But at the center, one drawer gaped open, 17B. A body bag lay half-slit out, the zipper undone to the chest, and inside, a face turned toward me, eyes open, lips parted, skin pale with freezer burn. Not Dr. Chun. It was Daniel Ross, the same patient I had lost years ago. His mouth twitched. A whisper clawed out of his throat, frost-bitten and ruined, yet unmistakable. "You're late." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My own voice withered in my throat as I stared at the drawer. Daniel Ross, pale, ice-glazed, lips cracked, should not have been here. He had no connection to the morgue, no reason to occupy drawer 17B. I had pronounced him dead years ago. His file was sealed, his burial witnessed. And yet, his eyes moved. They followed me. "You're late," he rasped again. I staggered back, slamming against the frame of the open door. My pager buzzed in my fist, the screen lighting up with words I hadn't typed, couldn't have typed. Confirmed death sign report. I shook my head, heart hammering. "This isn't real. You're dead." Daniel's lips curved no, cracked into a faint smile. "You left me." The words scraped out like glass, dragged across concrete. The drawer groaned as the bag shifted. A hand slid free, skin mottled in gray, nails rimmed with frost. Fingers curled against the steel edge, gripping with impossible strength. "No," I whispered, though I couldn't move, my legs rooted to the tile. He pulled. The sound was wrong like wet fabric tearing. His shoulders rose, then his chest, the wound across his sternum still raw, still bleeding as though time had never passed. "Stop," I begged, my voice shaking. "You're not supposed to be here. You're gone." Daniel swung his legs over the side of the drawer, bare feet slapping against the morgue floor. He stood, taller than I remembered, swaying slightly. Frost steamed off his skin in wisps, mixing with the sterile cold. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered harder, shadows jerking across his body. His eyes gleamed in the stuttered glow, fixed on me with something more than accusation. Hunger. "You can sign the papers again," he said, his voice a hollow echo. "But this time, you don't walk away." The pager shrieked in my palm, the screen flashing over and over. "Do not leave. Do not leave. Do not leave." And then Daniel stepped forward. I stumbled backward into the morgue, my spine scraping cold metal. The drawer clanged shut behind Daniel with a finality that echoed like a gavel. He stood between me and the only exit, the gray door now sealed tight, the red lock light glowing steadily as if mocking me. "Do not leave." The pager screamed in my fist, buzzing until it burned my palm. I hurled it across the room. It struck the far wall and skidded to the floor, but the screen kept flashing, the sound drilling into my skull. Daniel took a step toward me. His bare feet left wet prints on the tile, each one steaming in the fluorescent stutter. His chest wound oozed fresh blood, dark and thick, dripping as though it had never scabbed, never healed. "You let me die cold," he whispered, voice cracking but sure. "Now you'll feel it too." I pressed against the wall of drawers, my hand fumbling for anything, an instrument, a tool, something sharp. My fingers closed around the steel handle of another body drawer. Without thinking, I yanked it open. Empty. But the air inside rolled out, a breath so cold it seared my throat. My lungs tightened, frost blooming in my chest with every inhale. The fluorescent tubes overhead hummed, then popped one after another until the morgue dimmed, leaving only a single flickering light above Daniel. He smiled. His teeth were blackened, cracked. "You can't run," he rasped. "This room never lets you out." I forced my legs to move, darting toward the door. My badge hit the reader red light. Denied. Again. Denied. My fists pounded the steel. "Help! Somebody!" No answer. The intercom above hissed, then spat the same voice I'd heard in the corridor. Chun's voice, or something wearing it. "You were late." Daniel's reflection appeared in the brushed steel of the door behind me, closer than he was in reality, his mouth moving faster than his words. "Why did you stop? Why did you stop?" I spun, and he was inches away. His hand clamped around my wrist, the cold biting so deep it felt like bone cracking. I screamed, thrashing, trying to pull free. The pager on the floor shrieked a new line across its screen. Transfer initiated. The lights died. In the dark, his breath was in my ear. "Now it's your turn." Darkness swallowed everything. No sterile white walls, no flickering lights, just the suffocating weight of black, thick, and absolute. I could hear nothing but my own ragged breath and the faint buzz of blood in my ears. But then came another sound, a dragging step, slow, deliberate, bare feet sliding across tile. Closer, then stopping. "Doctor." Daniel's voice slithered through the dark, so close it seemed to come from inside my skull. "Do you remember how long I begged you? How long I thought you'd fight for me?" I tried to move, to back away, but the cold around my wrist held firm. His grip hadn't loosened. It felt like frostbite spreading beneath my skin, climbing up my arm. I forced a word past my dry throat. I tried, a low laugh, broken and wet. "You stopped." The pager shrieked again from somewhere on the floor, the sound ricocheting around the morgue until I couldn't tell where it was. The green glow pulsed faintly in the dark, like a dying heartbeat. I lunged toward it, ripping myself from his grasp with a cry that tore my throat raw. My body hit the tile hard, knees and palms stinging. The pager's screen flickered, the words jittering as though written by a trembling hand. "Transfer complete. Location, Trauma 2. And then the morgue dissolved. The cold tile under my palms vanished, replaced by the sticky warmth of blood. The flickering light above me brightened into the harsh glare of an overhead lamp. My knees pressed against linoleum-smeared crimson. A monitor beeped steadily, somewhere too close. I was no longer in the morgue. I was in Trauma 2. But the room wasn't empty. A body lay on the stretcher, chest cracked open, blood pooling beneath. My gloves were already slick with red, my hands frozen above the wound, as though I'd been mid-resuscitation. And the face staring back at me wasn't Daniel's. It was mine. Eyes glassy, lips parted, my own reflection sprawled lifeless before me. Behind me, a whisper coiled around my ear. "Now you know how it feels." I staggered back from the stretcher, my legs trembling so violently I nearly collapsed. The body on the table was me, same scar on the brow from a childhood fall, same crooked finger broken years ago in residency. My own face stared blankly upward, eyes filmed with death. "No," I muttered, "this isn't real." But the monitors insisted otherwise. Beep, beep. My heart, his heart, our heart, rising, falling, caught between life and silence. I pressed a trembling hand to my chest. My pulse thudded there, frantic, alive. But the monitor connected to the body on the stretcher beat in perfect sync. Each rise in my chest mirrored, by a jagged wave on the screen. Each exhale I forced shivered from the corpse's lips. We were tethered. "You stopped," Daniel's voice rasped, though he was nowhere to be seen. The air itself spoke now, bouncing off walls, vibrating in the lights overhead. "And now you don't get to stop again." The pager at my belt buzzed, though I swore I'd left it shattered in the morgue. I yanked it free, and on the screen words scrolled in sickly green, "Trauma 2 active. Morgue active. You cannot leave." The room warped at the edges. The blood pooling beneath the stretcher spread too fast, running past my shoes, climbing the walls like veins of crimson ivy. The overhead lamp dimmed, then flickered with the same stuttering hum as the morgue's lights. For a dizzy instant, I saw both places at once, the IB and the morgue, overlaid like double exposure. Drawers lining the walls of Trauma 2. A stretcher shoved into the morgue's center. Frost dripping into warm blood. 2 rooms, 1 space, folding into each other until I couldn't tell where I stood. My other self blinked. Just once. I stumbled back, colliding with a drawer that hadn't been there a moment ago. My hand left a smear of blood on its handle. The corpse on the table turned its head toward me. My face, my mouth. And when it opened, Daniel's voice poured out, "You will resuscitate me forever." The monitor screamed, "Flatline." The corpse convulsed, chest heaving, eyes rolling. My gloved hands rose of their own accord, slamming down against my twin sternum, compressing in rhythm. Beep, beep, beep. Not a code blue, not a patient. It was me. And Daniel wouldn't let me stop this time. My palms slammed rhythm into the sternum of my own corpse, each push a brutal echo in my shoulders. The monitor screamed back at me, lines jagged, then flat, then jagged again, as though it couldn't decide whether I was alive or dead. Sweat blurred my vision, but my hands wouldn't stop. Couldn't stop. 30 compressions, Daniel's voice rasped, right at my ear, though I couldn't see him. 2 breaths, again. I tried to pull back, to rip my hands away, but my body refused. The muscles in my arms jerked like a marionette pulled by unseen strings. My chest burned with exhaustion. My wrists ached, yet the compressions went on, relentless. The corpse's lips twitched. Blood bubbled at the corners of its mouth. Then the eyes snapped open my eyes, and they locked on mine with glassy precision. "You don't get to quit." The lights overhead flickered, and for a split second, I saw the room as it was to everyone else. Empty. No corpse, no blood. Just me kneeling on the cold linoleum, pressing my hands into nothing. My body jerking up and down in frantic rhythm against the bare floor. Then it snapped back. The corpse was there again, skin gray and bruised, chest caving beneath my palms. The pager shrieked at my side. Trauma 2 active. Another vibration rattled through my bones. Morgue active. And then, cycle repeat. The scene folded. Walls bent inward. Drawers from the morgue slammed open one by one, bodies twitching inside, all whispering in one united hiss. "You stopped. You stopped. You stopped." I screamed, wrenching my hands away at last. The corpse's chest didn't rise. The monitor flatlined. I staggered back, clutching my ears, desperate to block out the whispers. The drawer nearest me slammed shut with a metallic crack. Then another, until only one remained open. Drawer 17B. And from inside it, Daniel's frostbitten hand reached out again. "Back to work, Doctor," he hissed. The pager buzzed. New cycle initiated. And I knew then I wasn't saving lives anymore. I was trapped in a loop of death. The beeping never stopped. Even when I stumbled back against the wall, even when I clamped my palms over my ears until my nails bit skin, the monitor's rhythm pounded inside me. Flatline, spike, Flatline. Spike. The loop wouldn't break. Doctor? The voice wasn't Daniel's this time. It was Claire. I jerked my head up. She stood in the doorway of Trauma 2, clipboard pressed to her chest, her brow furrowed. Behind her, the hallway lights flickered, as though the storm I carried inside had bled into the building. "What are you doing?" she asked. I opened my mouth, but words died in my throat. What could I tell her? That I'd been resuscitating my own corpse? That Daniel Ross, dead for years, had chained me to a cycle no chart could explain? Her eyes flicked to the monitor. She froze. "There's no patient," she whispered. And yet the machine still beeped. Flatline. Spike. Flatline. Spike. Claire dropped the clipboard. Papers scattered across the floor. She backed away slowly, her gaze darting between me and the stretcher that, to her, sat empty. "Doctor, you need help," she stammered. "You're seeing things." But then something changed. The drawers lining the walls, the morgue drawers that shouldn't exist in Trauma 2, slammed open unison. Cold air gusted into the room, carrying a smell of frost and rot. Claire gasped, her breath puffing white in the sudden chill. She saw it. Her eyes widened, her lips trembling. No, that's not possible." The whispers rose again. Not only for me this time. Claire heard them too. "You stopped. You stopped. You stopped." The fluorescent lights above us blew out in a shower of sparks. Darkness flooded the room, broken only by the green glow of my pager on the floor. Its screen pulsed like a heartbeat, cycle spreading. LL rooms active. In the black, Claire clutched my arm. "What's happening?" I didn't answer, because I already knew. Daniel wasn't just haunting me anymore. He had found a way into the hospital itself. And the whole building was beginning to breathe with his dead lungs. The hospital had always hummed with life machines whirring, voices blending, footsteps echoing through long corridors. But now, that hum twisted into something wrong. Each beep, each whine, each hiss of oxygen tanks pulsed in rhythm with the same dreadful cadence. Daniel's cadence. Flatline. Spike, flatline. Spike. The building itself was breathing. Claire clutched my arm so tightly, her nails dug through the fabric of my sleeve. Her eyes darted around the room, wide and shimmering. "Doctor, the whole hospital, listen." And I did. From the ICU above us, I heard a dozen monitors in perfect unison. From pediatrics, a chorus of tiny machines. From the OR suites, alarms shrieking in harmony. Every department speaking the same message, the same impossible rhythm. "You stopped. You stopped. You stopped." Claire pressed a hand over her ears, but the sound tunneled through the walls, through our skulls. A vibration that belonged not in air, but in bone. The pager glowed hotter now, sickly green light washing the floor. Spread complete. Then, all patients linked. "No," I whispered. "He can't." Claire turned to me, tears streaking down her cheeks. Who are you talking about?" The drawers in Trauma 2 groaned again, sliding open and slamming shut in erratic sequence. Frost spilled onto the tiles, creeping toward our shoes. One by one, shadows rose from the gaping spaces, half-formed, stiff figures dragging themselves free, eyes blind, but mouths whispering in perfect synchrony. They weren't Daniel. They were everyone I had failed. Faces I recognized. Patients I had lost. The old man with the cardiac arrest. The child whose lungs collapsed before we could intubate. The burn victim who didn't make it through the night. All of them shuffling forward, lips muttering the same phrase, heads jerking with each syllable. "You stopped," Claire screamed, stumbling back against the wall. "What is this?" I couldn't answer. My throat closed. My chest heaved. Because at the center of them, rising taller than the rest, Daniel stepped forward. His wound dripped black blood onto the floor, staining every footprint behind him. His gaze locked on mine, and for a moment, every shadow in the room froze. "You thought it was only me," he said, voice resonating through the steel walls. "But it's all of us. You carry everyone you abandoned." The corpses surged closer, their whispers swelling into a roar. Claire clutched my arm, sobbing, her voice breaking, "Make it stop, please." But I couldn't, because Daniel was right. I had carried them all with me, and now they had come to collect. The roar of voices pressed into me like a tidal wave. Not sound, but weight thousands of syllables crashing against my skull until I swore it would split. Claire screamed, her hands clawing at her ears, but the whispers tunneled through, unstoppable. The shadows pressed closer. Bodies that weren't bodies. Faces half remembered, mouths opening in unison. Every failure, every pronouncement of death I'd ever signed, now stood before me, alive enough to accuse. "You stopped. You stopped. You stopped." The fluorescents overhead exploded one by one, glass raining down in glittering arcs. The emergency lights flickered red, bathing the room in a bloody glow. In that pulsing light, the shadows looked more solid, more human. Some wore hospital gowns. Some lay on stretchers that dragged themselves forward, wheels screeching. Others carried the tubes and wires of failed machines, dragging them like chains. And at the center, Daniel, his chest wound gaped wider now, the skin tearing with every step. Blood pooled and spread across the tiles, creeping toward me in black rivers. He raised a frostbitten hand, and the hospital answered. Every alarm, every machine, every system fell into sync. Flatline, spike, flatline, spike. Claire collapsed against the wall, sobbing, shaking her head. "This isn't real. It can't be real." But I saw her breath fog in the air. I saw the red light glint off glassy eyes that shouldn't be open. Whatever this was, she was caught in it too. The pager shrieked on the floor. Cycle stable. All systems engaged. Daniel's gaze locked on me. "Do you feel it now? The weight of them? The silence you left behind?" I tried to speak, but my voice cracked. I can't save them." He stepped closer. The corpses surged with him, whispering louder, drowning everything else. "You won't save them," he said. His smile stretched too wide, too wrong. "You'll join them." The walls of Trauma 2 shuddered. Plaster cracked. Frost spread across the ceiling like veins. Somewhere above, alarms shrieked as entire wards collapsed into the rhythm. Staff screamed in the distance, but their cries blurred into the chorus. Claire grabbed my arm, eyes wide with terror. "We have to run." But when I turned toward the doorway, the corridor beyond wasn't a corridor anymore. It was the morgue. Drawer 17B stood open, yawning black. The cycle was folding everything inward. There was nowhere left to go. The room tilted, or maybe the world did. My stomach lurched as the walls bent inward, fusing A and Morgue into one grotesque chamber. Trauma 2's monitors blinked and bled into the morgue's frost-coated drawers, their beeps echoing like funeral bells. Drawer 17B yawned wider. Inside it was not darkness, but a red glow, pulsing with the same rhythm that had consumed the entire hospital. Flatline, spike, flatline, spike. Claire clawed at my sleeve. Don't look at it." Her voice cracked under the weight of terror. "It's not real," but I couldn't look away. My own failures stared back at me, all funneled into that one impossible opening. And behind them, Daniel's eyes. Pale, furious, alive with something that had outlasted death. "You stopped," he whispered. His voice came from everywhere. The walls, the machines, my own bones. "You let me slip away. And you told yourself it was mercy. But you know the truth. The air thinned. My lungs clawed for oxygen. I staggered forward, each step dragging like my shoes were nailed to the floor. The drawer pulled me, not with hands, but with memory. And the memory returned. The night of Daniel's death. The monitor screaming, the sweat on my brow, the nurses shouting for me to continue. I had felt the faintest flutter of rhythm, a spark beneath my palms, and I had chosen to stop. I had let exhaustion and frustration dictate mercy. It hadn't been mercy. It had been surrender. Claire's voice pierced the memory. "Doctor, don't." Hands erupted from the shadows gray, broken, cold, grabbing my arms, my chest, my throat. Patients I'd lost, faces I knew. They pulled me toward the open drawer, their whispers vibrating against my skin. "You stopped. Now you don't." I thrashed, choking on my own breath, but the hospital itself dragged me closer. The floor beneath my feet became frost, cracking as blood seeped up through the ice. Daniel's face filled the opening of 17B, grinning wide, black teeth gleaming. "Now you'll finish what you started." The pager at my belt buzzed one final message. Cycle locked. And then the hands yanked me into the drawer. The cold closed around me like a grave. The world swallowed me whole. Frost scraped my skin as if I'd been pulled through glass. The scream I tried to let out froze in my throat, turning into white vapor that dissolved before it reached the air. And then silence. Not the silence of an empty hospital, but something deeper. A silence so total, it rang like a tone in my skull. I was inside the drawer, or what the drawer had become. I stood in a corridor of steel walls, endless rows of morgue drawers stretching into black infinity. Each bore a tag, and each tag carried a name. I knew every patient I had lost. The tags pulsed faintly with sickly green light, the same glow as my pager. One drawer slid open on its own. Inside lay the old man with cardiac arrest, his chest caved where compressions had broken bone. His lips moved soundlessly. "You stopped." Another slid out. The burned child, skin blistered, eyes wide with betrayal. "You stopped." More drawers opened, a chain reaction, until whispers filled the steel corridor, overlapping into a chorus that made my knees buckle. Hands stretched from each open drawer, pale and grasping, not pulling me closer this time, but pushing me forward, herding me deeper into the endless hall. At the far end stood a single door drawn in frost, dripping blood. Drawer 17B, larger than the rest, glowing red from within. Daniel stepped out of it. His wound gaped wider now, his chest a hollow cavity where a heart should be. Frost steamed off him in thick clouds, blood freezing into black crystals on the floor. His eyes found me, and in them I saw no hatred anymore, only certainty. "You've always known this is where you belonged," he said. His voice wasn't a whisper now. It was steady, calm. "You live in death. You breathe it, and when you finally stopped trying, you became mine." I shook my head, stumbling back. My voice cracked. "No, I'm still alive. Claire saw me. The staff." Daniel raised a hand, and every drawer slammed shut at once. The sound reverberated like 1,000 hammers. The silence that followed was worse. "You are here," he said. "That means you never left." The frost beneath my feet cracked open. I looked down, and the floor wasn't tile anymore. It was a frozen lake. Beneath the ice, bodies floated. Not strangers. All of them me. My own face staring up from the dark, over and over, each one dead in a different way. My chest seized, my pulse stuttered. I couldn't tell if I was standing anymore, or lying among them, another reflection waiting to sink. Daniel leaned closer, his breath fogging my cheek. "Cycle locked," he whispered. "Now you resuscitate forever." The drawers slid open again, hundreds of them, arms reaching. Not to pull me away this time, but to press me down, palms flat against my chest. My ribs groaned under the pressure. Compression, compression, compression. Flatline, spike, flatline, spike. The hospital's rhythm had followed me inside, and there was no exit left. The pressure crushed my chest until my vision smeared into streaks of white and red. Arms pinned me, drawer after drawer, pouring out pale hands, pressing down, forcing me into the rhythm. Flatline, spike, flatline, spike. But then another sound bled into the silence. A scream. Not Daniel's, not mine. A living voice. Claire. The drawer world rippled like disturbed water. Frost cracked overhead, light bleeding through, as if from another place. I blinked, and for an instant, I wasn't in the steel corridor anymore. I was back in Trauma 2. My body arched on the floor, limbs jerking, foam flecking my lips. Claire knelt beside me, defibrillator pads in trembling hands, shouting for help down the hallway. "Stay with me. Don't you die here." Her voice echoed into both worlds. In the drawer's infinity, it sounded far away, distorted, like someone calling through a storm. Daniel appeared again, stepping from 17B, his shadow stretching long over the frozen lake. "She can't save you. No one can. Not anymore." I thrashed against the hands crushing me, choking on cold air. My own body convulsed on the Trauma 2 floor, Claire slamming pads onto my chest. Charging. Clear. A jolt tore through me. In the hospital, my back arched violently. In the drawer world, the frozen lake shattered, icy water surging up to my knees. Daniel's grin cracked wider. "See? Even she forces you to keep going. The cycle is hers now too." Another shock. My teeth rattled. The corpses beneath the ice stirred, dozens of my own faces rising toward the surface. Mouths open, eyes glazed. Their voices blended into Daniel's. "You stopped. You won't stop again." Claire screamed my name. Her hands pressed into my chest, desperate, human. And for a flicker of a moment, her warmth cut through the cold. But Daniel only stepped closer, his eyes burning holes through me. "She'll tire. They always tire. And when she stops?" He leaned so close I could smell the rot on his breath. "You'll stay here forever." The ice cracked wider. My hands, dozens of them, reached up from beneath, grabbing my legs, my arms, pulling me under. Somewhere above, Claire's voice broke. "Please, come back." But Daniel's whisper was the last thing I heard before the water closed over me. "You're mine now." The water swallowed me, thick and black, my lungs screaming. My own hands dragged me deeper, pulling me toward a darkness that pulsed like a heart. The voices blended into one endless chant. "You stopped. You stopped. You stopped." Above me, a flash white blinding. Pain ripped through my chest. A defibrillator. For a heartbeat, the drawer world cracked. I glimpsed Claire's face bent over mine, streaked with tears, her hands shaking on the paddles. "Come back," she begged. "Don't you dare leave me here." Another jolt. My body convulsed. The water split with light, shoving Daniel back for the first time. His grin faltered. "No," he hissed, voice like shattering glass. "You're not done." The corpses beneath me clawed harder, pulling at my legs, my arms. But the light cut through them, scattering shadows into mist. One more shock. My chest exploded with fire. My eyes snapped open Trauma 2 above me, fluorescent light swaying, Claire's sob of relief ringing in my ears. I gasped, a ragged, broken breath, blood in my throat, but air all the same. Alive. For a moment, only silence. The monitor steadied, the whispers gone. The room was just a room again. Claire leaned over me, clutching my hand. "You're safe now. You're back." But as I turned my head, I saw it. The morgue drawer. 17B, still open in the corner of the room where no drawer should be. Frost spilling out, a green pager glow pulsing within. And from its depths, Daniel's voice, calm and patient. "We'll start again soon." The monitor at my side skipped a beat. Flatline, spike, flatline, spike. The cycle hadn't ended. It never would.